In this video, we're going to talk about the while loop in Python using different examples, and also we are going to code a very simple game using the while loop in Python programming language. So please stay tuned. So first of all, let's talk about a very simple example, but as we go through this tutorial, the examples will get better. So the first one is that suppose that I define a variable named x and I assign 5 to that variable. And then I say, okay, while x is equal to 5, in that case, I want to print hi. And now if I run this code, you can see it is going to run this code forever, and it is not going to stop this code. Why? Because x is 5, and it is always going to be 5. It is not going to be changed to other values, so it is always going to be 5. So that's why when we say while x is 5, which is always 5, then it is always going to print hi. So let's click on this in order to stop this code. But now let's suppose that after this line, I reassign the x variable. And for example, I want to assign another value, for example, 6 to the x variable. So now, as you can see, yes, in the beginning, x is 5, but then I'm saying, okay, while x is 5 and up to now, it is 5, so it is going to go to this while loop, and it is going to print hi. But after printing hi, we are changing the value of x to 6. So now, when I go back to the while loop, we are checking if x is 5, which is not. So, because this while loop is saying while x is 5, do this and that. But here, we changed the value of x. So now it is not 5 anymore, so it is not going to enter that while loop. So if I run the code, you can see, yes, it only print hi once. Why? Because as I've told you, yes, in the beginning, x is 5, and then when it is 5, it is going to say, okay, while x is 5, which in the beginning it is 5, it is going to enter that while loop, and in that while loop, it is going to print hi. So there you go, this is that hi. But after that, it is going to change the value of x to 6. So now, when it goes back to the while loop, when it wants to continue, this while loop says, okay, while x is 5. But now, x is not 5 anymore. Now it's 6, so it is not going to enter that while loop. So as you can see, we are printing hi only once. But honestly, that example was not very practical, so let's talk about a more practical example. Suppose that we want to, for example, have a game with computer. Suppose that the computer is going to toss a dice, so it is going to generate a random number between 1 to 6, because if we want to simulate the process of tossing a dice, we need to generate a random number between 1 to 6. So suppose that the computer is going to toss a dice and we're going to guess that number. And while our guess is not correct, we are going to continue guessing. But if we reach a point that we guess the correct number, in that case, the game is over and we are going to finish this process. So for doing that, first of all, I want to generate a random number from 1 to 6. So for doing that, I want to simply type import random, which is one of the packages of Python, which we can use for doing some random stuff. And maybe you ask, okay, what is the meaning of package? Well, package is some actually pre-made stuff, some pre-made codes that you can use. So for example, this random module has a lot of built-in things for doing some random stuff. And you don't need to do all of those things. You don't need to write all of those codes manually. So you can just simply use this random module, this random package in Python. You can call it in different ways. You can call it module, package, and library, because in many different languages, these terms are used, so that's why people use it interchangeably. But actually in Python, we usually use the term package or module. Anyway, so we import the random package, and then we say, okay, the random module, hey, we say, oh, the random module. It says, yes, what do you want me to do? we say, okay, could you please give me the randint function? It says, okay, here we go, use the randint function. And the randint function is going to take two things. So we want to generate a random integer number between 1 to 6. After that, I store this thing, this random number, in a variable. Suppose that I want to name it computer. Actually, this is the number that the computer is choosing, because as I've told you, I said suppose that the computer is tossing a dice, and for simulating that, we want to generate a random integer number between 1 to 6. So this is the result of that tossing process. The computer has chosen this number. So from now on, we want to do some stuff. We want to, for example, guess a number, and if that guess was correct, so in that case the game is over. But if that guess was not correct, so in that case we want to continue guessing so that we reach a point that we guess the correct number. So for doing so, we want to define a variable named stop, and I initially assign the false value to the stop variable. So initially the stop variable is false. But and maybe you say, oh, why we're defining this variable? Because actually the thing that it is in my mind and the kind of process that I want to code is that, okay, I want to say, okay, if the variable stop is false, it means that it is not the time to stop this game yet. So if the stop variable is false, it means that we should continue guessing. But if the stop variable is true, in that case, we need to stop this game. Maybe you don't understand it yet, but you will see all the stuff, and you will understand all the stuff better in a couple of minutes. Please wait a minute. Anyway, so I'm defining a variable named stop, and by default, I'm assigning the false value to this variable. And then I simply type, okay, while the stop variable is false, I want to do some stuff. While the stop variable is false, it means that while we don't need to stop the game, while the rule of the game is that we should continue and we should not stop, then we're going to do some stuff. What are those stuff? First of all, I want to take an input from the user. And for example, this is the message that I want to give to user. Enter an integer number between 1 to 6. There we go. And after that, as you know, when the user passes something to the input function, this input function is going to consider the string of that thing. But we don't want that. We want the number itself, not that string. So we want to convert that into the integer. And after that, I want to assign this into a variable. For example, let's name it user, or I don't know, for example, guess, the user guess, or whatever. You can name it whatever you want. For example, let's type guess. Let's define the name. Let's name it guess. And after that, we say, okay, if the guess of the user was equal to the number that the computer has chosen, in that case, so our guess is correct, and we need to stop this game. So in that case, the stop variable is going to be true. We're going to change the value of the stop variable. And if we change this value, the next time we want to check the while loop, because stop is true, it is not going to enter this while loop, because in that case, if we guess the correct number, in that case, the stop variable would be true. So in that case, we're not going to enter this while loop. But otherwise, no, we should continue. So if guess is equal to computer, we're going to do this. But otherwise, no, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to touch the stop variable. But if the guess is exactly the thing that a computer has chosen, if our guess was correct, yes, in that case, we're going to change the stop variable. But otherwise, no, we're not going to change the stop variable. So now let's run the code to see the process. So if I run a code, it says enter an integer number between 1 to 6. For example, let's suppose that I enter 5 and I press enter. Okay, it is not 5. What about 1? Enter. Oh, that was correct. So as you can see, we are we are having a kind of game with the computer that the computer is choosing a random integer number between 1 to 6, and we are guessing that number. This was one of the videos of a step-by-step tutorial playlist of Python. You can find a link to that playlist in the description below, and also we have other playlists for other topics which you can find them on the channel page.